As jungle changes every year, so do the bad habits that cost you wins. Some years, certain mistakes are simply more costly than others. So in this video, we will go over the 4 biggest bad habits that junglers are doing in every single MMR below Master. So if you want gold, if you want diamond, if you want to climb through diamond and get Master tier, these habits are things that I'm seeing in all my coaching sessions and across my coaching YouTube channel. So we will go over core examples that showcase these weaknesses, turn them into strengths by fixing them, which of course will allow you to carry, win, and climb faster than ever. Although if you want to go faster than that even, then you can use one of my jungle courses on Virkayu.gg. Whatever you need to climb quickly and to reach your peak faster than anywhere else, how to keep building on strong fundamentals from low elo to gold to platinum to diamond, each step of the way improving every aspect of your jungling and making you a more powerful total jungler. Along with the free jungle improvement PDF that I provide to everybody, as well as weekly tips and free video symposiums and lectures. That's right. Not to mention we have copious success stories on the website, as well as one-on-one coaching, a coaching VOD library, Virkayu.gg, a jungler's learning paradise. So this first one's a bit generic, but it applies to ganking as well as farming junglers. Basically, it's the single camp paradox. By this, I basically mean that when you are full sequencing, when you are quadrant clearing, when you are simply looking to do a clear into a gank, a lot of junglers, including in this diamond game, are effectively compromising their sequences with bad rotations, bad decision making, and then moving somewhere else while leaving one camp up and taking one away. What this does is distort your natural camp sequencing, your natural full clearing, and it doesn't allow camps to respawn. So effectively, say you do wolves, you go look at top lane and you skip your gromp. You could have done your gromp while you waited for your laner, but you decided to skip it anyway. Now you want to go mid lane, but you see the enemy jungler ganking bot side, so you kind of run on down, you dribble over to your red side, maybe you do some camps, and now effectively you sit there and wait and wait and wait, and then that wolf camp respawns while you're wasting your time investing into something you shouldn't invest, and you could have just realized, hey, I could have taken the grump as well. Now imagine if this is compounded over the whole of the early game into the mid game. That's a lot of golden experience and why your CSPM isn't as high as it should be. You also have moments where you're basically saying, well, I could take this Herald right here. This seems nice, but I don't really have the laner presence. I have some gold I want to spend. I want to now go to the bottom side, much like this Fiddlesticks. And instead of finishing the gromp on this play that we talked about, he leaves it up, goes to the base, goes to the bottom side, and he's not missing anything because all of those camps are going to be up. The dragon's going to be a thing on the map soon. There's a counter jungling possibility if the enemy Karthus actually takes the Herald. And, you know, he could have just finished off his blue side quadrant and gone back to base. Ideally, we do wolves gromp and then gank top lane, but sometimes we have to react to information and make the right play, which of course he did, so that's great. But the problem is, and I'm seeing this again in a lot of low and mid MMR coaching in general, people are just kind of doing one camp, looking onto the map for something, instead of just finishing the quadrant and then looking, or looking to do something before you do the quadrant and then falling back to it. That's the idea. Making sure that if you're not going to be full sequencing as a farming or ganking jungler, for whatever reason, you're at least looking to finish the quadrant and then go to the other side of the map so that you can have the respawn when you eventually head back there later on. Simply something to think about, but you're seeing the Karthus here as well. He's kind of doing okay with his first rotation sequencing as I speed it up, and then we fast forward and he's done his blue side quadrant, finished it, gone back to base. Hey, that's great. Does stuff on the top side. By that I mean does his Raptors, red Krugs, all seems good in the world except for the opposite sequencing direction. Helps out a little bit with the Herald and then floats back down to do his wolves into his gromp. This leaves him with not much to do with opposite sequencing, goes venturing too deep, dies, gets picked off. Why? Because he split his sequencing, wasn't tracking the Fiddlesticks, did not control that Herald whatsoever. The Olaf did that for him. Now when he respawns, yes, he's able to sneak the dragon. The Fiddlesticks gave him that opportunity. Now he has to sit around and wait for the blue. He has to go to the wolf camp. And because it goes wolves, gromp, and Raptors, Krugs, he has split even further his sequencing, and now that gromp will be left alone as he goes to the top side. Ideally, you are not in those scenarios. If you're trailing enemy junglers across the map and leaving camps here and there over the course of the whole early game, well, you don't have tempo control, do you? Now, the most important thing is the inability for junglers to use the information they've gathered or to gather misinformation. With great power comes great responsibility. You are the jungler. You have some of the most agency in the history of this game. You can control things. It doesn't feel like that always because of certain changes and metas, but you do have that power. Thus, if you are a platinum level jungler, why are you pinging the enemy jungler starting topside when very clearly the enemy Shyvana started on the bottom side? What does this mean for the rest of your early game? Well, and this obviously happens in low elo quite a bit, so it's really something I focus on telling you guys in courses and in coaching, but if you simply can extrapolate what they're going to do in the first 2-3 phases of the game, you can track someone for the next 10 minutes. But what happens here is that the Shyvana goes topside, we don't expect it. Now, instead of thinking, oh look, this gromp is gonna be up at 4 minutes 20, the second spawn, because she started topside and went down, it's actually the Krugs that are gonna spawn at around 4 minutes 20 because she went bottom side up. Thus, if you don't realize this before it's too late, you're gonna waste your time not going for ganks you could go for just to burn sums, not positioning yourself for the right optimal counter jungling, but at the same time, this is just misinformation, right? We have the wrong thing, we didn't notice, it does happen. The problem is when the information is given to us and we simply don't use it properly. There's a great example here from the Silver Graves versus Warwick. Now this obviously might sound a bit too much for Silver, but I don't agree. I think this is pretty damn straightforward. We're Graves, we start topside, we go down. We track that the Warwick started bot and went up. What clear do you think the Warwick was going to do? A 3 camper, a 4 camper, a 5 camper, or a 6 camper? Most of you are probably thinking he's gonna do some sort of 3 to 4 camper, look to gank the top side, maybe get scuttle control, drive by mid lane, take the other scuttle, all those things that allow him to deal with the Graves properly, because of course as Warwick mains, we know we can. The thing is though, the Graves decides to cut and gank the bottom lane without really checking to see if it was a gank, but hey, we burn some so we get some chunking, that's great. While that's happening, as we move up to do the scuttle crab, you gotta press tab and you see the Warwick crossing mid lane, level 3, and with 24 CS. Why is this so important? It means that because it's 3 minutes 45 on the game clock that he 99% took a scuttle, but most importantly, 24 CS is a full clear. But if you do a full clear, you're level 4. He isn't level 4, he's level 3, which means that 6th camp that's available is either the Krug camp or the Grom camp. We don't know exactly which one it is going to be, but I think most of us would think that the Warwick did a Red Raptors Wolves Grom Blue kind of clear. Now we don't recognize this, we do get pushed away from the Scuttle Crab, some weird stuff ensues and there's not much we can really do about it. But because we didn't recognize this, F key to look at it or click to look at it and press tab to process it, we aren't able to use the information. And so when Warwick shows up on the top side with 28 CS, what does that mean? Does that mean that he took his Krugs and went back to base? Does that mean that he went back to base after Scuttle and took the Gromp and Gang topside? Or does it mean something else? Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I thought at this particular moment it meant the guy kind of went back to base, took that Gromp, and then went back to the top side. When in reality what happened is he actually went to his second spawn Krug camp, went back to base, went straight top lane, and then as you click and watch his pathing, you see, okay, he's probably going down to do his wolves, which means he's going down to the red side. So as Graves, I told him, hey, stay out. I know you haven't reset yet. You've done a full second sequence. Why didn't you just stay out and sneak this RNG scuttle? Purely because you know that this guy should be going down to the red side. Now, this is a fusion of the real-time tracking that we have in-game with the information that we have versus the randomness that some junglers will just do in certain elos. And let's face it, it's a lot of elos. As a cutaway point, look from the Fiddlesticks Karthus example. Fiddlesticks gets seen by the Olaf top lane doing his blue going down. The Karthus full clears and then still goes and checks to see if the Gromp and Blue are available. Diamond, my friends. So if you can master this in Silver, Gold, Platinum, you should have no issue tracking these fools. So back to the Warwick case, all that essentially means is instead of doing the Wolves, Raptors, Krugs, he was doing the first Gromp, the second Wolves, and the second Raptors, and then of course the third Krugs will go into spawn. Again, this isn't something we know, but it still allows us to go ahead and sneak that Scuttle Crab because we see the Warwick chunked and going down to his blue side. We can assume he's going to do those camps before the Scuttle Crab. We sneak it, we go back to base. If he does show up, obviously, then we can leave, and of course we would have a better idea then of his information because he would show up with that 32 plus 36, so we know, he did the Krugs before base, gank top lane, did Gromp and Wolves, now I know what's going on. But he doesn't show, we get the free scuttle, we go back to base, we go down to the bottom side, he shows up, he's now level 6 because of this. Okay, now I figured it out because he has 48 CS. The point is, this information use or misinformation use or just misinformation, this is the ultimate separator between the greatest junglers and those who become really hard stuck in whatever elo they're in. For example, in the Platinum course, we had this very explicit issue show up with a Rengar versus a Vi. We discussed all the tracking, the outcomes, the possibilities, and what happens is if the Rengar just simply paid attention to the information the Vi gave away with the bottom lane gank, he could have taken her first spawn Krugs, taken the Scuttle Crab and gotten out very safely. But he missed a few things, took plants and wasted them, ended up on the Krug camp as the Vi was going to be going to that side, and he lost his flash because of it. An absolute huge issue and something we spend a lot of time on focusing, honing, and making sure we're really great at in the Platinum course, because if you want Diamond, that's definitely the next level. But if you're Silver, Gold, or Bronze or whatever, this kind of stuff helps you climb as well. But in addition to that, to build on this Rengar Vi example, just as a little clip from the game in the course, not obviously of the course itself, is you need to know how to make a play, and most players in most elos have this avoidance of doing so. Alright, we ran into the Vi, she forced us to flash out, we go back to base, we know her second raptors are up, she's gonna do those. Hey, I expect her to probably go to the bottom side scuttle, so me as Rengar with itemization advantage probably want to go and do something about that. Wait a second, she's crossing mid lane, walking straight into the bottom scuttle, and my bottom lane has huge prio. I should probably do something, you know these raptors look nice. Is that you? I'm afraid that's most of you. People are just too afraid to go make the aggressive play when the universe aligns and the stars and the planets are ready to go. People are afraid of Viegos when they invade them as Kayn, and instead of just saying, hey, I might as well do as much damage as possible before I leave and see where I'm at, or do as much damage as possible before my teammate's able to rotate and then I can escape so they can get the kill, instead of just, taking free damage, not doing anything and running away. People's inability to put cutthroat jungling at the forefront of their mechanics is the issue why things don't happen, because you can have all this information, you can do all these cool things, but if you don't act on it mechanically, or go ahead and make the PvP play, or go ahead and make any sort of aggressive play in general to shut down enemy junglers, what do you expect to happen? The enemy jungle gets freebies, they get free fed from your lanes, you are too focused on your own business and not punishing them for their mistakes. That's when issues arise, that's when you get stuck, and that's when it feels like your teammates are feeding enemy junglers, when in reality you had the control to do something about it, you just chose not to, much like this Rengar vs the Vi. This is what leads to you having low KP, and how eventually you have to think of your mechanics as a tool to be able to be used. If you're not flashing in to grab kills you know you can get, you have to stop saving your flashes, you have to stop saving your dashes and ultimates for the best day possible. If in the moment you can grab the kill, which can then be leveraged into counter jungling, objectives, another gank, something that really denies the game state and allows you to snowball, why aren't you investing it? Why are you saving it for the blue moon that might never arrive? Stop avoiding making plays you know you can make because you flex with your champions and your builds too often. That's why we say, have your champion pool, play the same builds, the good builds that other players have mastered and showcased at the best, or something you're just comfortable with. Know the limits of the combination of your champion and builds versus other meta junglers and other junglers you face, and all of a sudden the plays you can make become very profound and obvious. Hey, this is not a play I can make, I need to give it up and go do something else. That's good. One step back, two step forwards. Oh hey, this is something I can do, I can shut him down, take his whole red side quadrant, dive his top lane and take the herald. Alright, I'm gonna make that play. But if you permanently avoid making those plays, if you don't punish those mistakes like the Vi crossing mid lane, why isn't she just being killed for this? Then you're not getting advantages that are free for you, and instead the enemy jungler is, and that just doesn't feel good. And finally, you all have a jungle camp passion. A passion for finishing the jungle camp when you probably shouldn't. This is an amazing example. Watch this. Top laners fighting, diving, fisting, one-on-one gladiators, Romans, everything you could possibly imagine. The Zachary. I'ma do this blue, and then I'ma do this grump, and I'm a little blobby, but I'ma get this farm, this my experience, and this my gold. You got your top laner getting an aneurysm from pinging 1,000 million times, and the enemy laner just gets away running away. Guess the elo. Think about it, what elo do you think this was? Silver? Bronze? Iron? No, this was a mid-MMR plat game, my friends. Can you believe it? But trust me when I say it looks way worse when you watch someone else do it. You are all doing this in your games no matter what MMR you are. Keep your eyes up, look for that rotation, sometimes you just have to leave the camp, you can come back to it later. Do not let a top laner escape a situation with 1 HP because you just weren't reacting to information on the map. Don't not go for a possible dive because you just wanted your raptor camp. The only time it's really okay to think like this is, hey look, I really need this camp for 6 and then I can alter that fight in a better way. I might sacrifice a lane of forward, but I'll definitely get the cleanup. But you have to get used to and get better at assessing these things. Is there an 80% probability I can rotate and do something before or after finishing this camp? For example, if it's going to take you 10 years to do grump and everyone's going to escape, then you might as well just rotate in the first place, especially if it's free. When you take all of these habits together and you realize, wow, this is really what's holding me back if I'm a ganker, a farmer, an objective focuser, it doesn't really matter because they all have connective tissue to each other, which allows you to control games as a jungler. Now, if you want to control games to the next level, then you really need to hone your fundamentals, and the 10 jungling commandments will give it so.